Hi gorgeous people, you're welcome back to my channel. I'm Oluwatosin and this is So Vistosin. Guys, in today's video we are going to be learning how to make this trendy 8 pieces blouse with yoke. We are going to be learning how to cut this exact style. So to all my returning subscribers, you're so much welcome, and to those seeing this channel for the first time, you're welcome. Thank you guys for subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for finding my channel worthy to subscribe to. I really appreciate it and I don't take it for granted. Without talking too much, let's jump right into it. So for the sake of this project, we are going to be needing a pattern paper, a pair of scissors, staple, marker, and then the lace that we are working with, the Ankara fabric that we are working with, the cotton lining we are working with, and of course measurements. You know we need measurements, then chalk, ruler, and all of that. So basically, for the sake of this tutorial, you are going to be needing measurement like top length of 24, the bust is 36, the waist is 31, the hip is 41, the half length is 15, then the person's shoulder to under bust is 12, a shoulder to nipple is 10, a nipple to nipple is 6, a sleeve length is 24, a shoulder is 14, a armhole is 17, then a round sleeve is 12, 11, then 9 and 7. You know it's long sleeve. At the tip of like the wrist is 7. If I come up a little bit is 9, then if I go higher a little bit is 11, then if I go higher a little bit like before the armhole is 12. So moving ahead, the top length is 24. I'm going to be adding 2 inches to make it 26, and that is the exact thing I'm measuring right now. After cutting out the exact pattern paper, I'll go ahead to measure a chest point, which is 7, a shoulder to nipple, a shoulder to under a bust, and a waistline. I'm going to be adding half inch to all of these measurements. So I have a chest point, I have a shoulder to nipple, I have shoulder to under a bust, and of course a waistline. So the next thing I'll be doing is to measure a nipple to nipple. A nipple to nipple is 7. I said 6 earlier, but sorry, is 7. So I'll be dividing the nipple to nipple by 2, which gives me 3.5. Then I'll be adding half inch sewing allowance. I'll go ahead to connect that into a straight line. The next is to measure a shoulder, which is 14. 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. But at this point, I'm going to be adding 2 inches allowance to a shoulder. Then I'll go ahead to use 7 as a armhole. I'm marking an armhole now. Then I'll go ahead to draw my armhole curve. Don't worry guys, if you don't know how to like draw a perfect armhole, I'm going to like in my subsequent video I'll make a video on how to cut out a perfect armhole. So this is just me cutting out the armhole, then I'll connect it together. It's that simple. The next thing I'll be doing is I'll come down to that point and then I'll measure 2 inches forward. If the person I'm cutting for is busty, I can use 2.5, I can even use 3. But this person is obviously not a busty person. From my measurement save, you can tell. So I'm going to be using 2 in our case, but I said if the person is if you are cutting for a busty person, you can use 2.5, you can use 3, but I'm just going to be using 2. Then I'll just mark that up to under a bust and connect it into a straight line, and then I should have something looking like this. The next is on a armhole. I'm going to come down with 4 inches and then connect those points together, just as I'm doing in this video. This is me here trying to draft a princess dart. So after then, the next thing I will do is on the princess dart line, I'm going to like close to the armhole side, I'll come forward with 1 inch, backward with 1 inch, and then I'll just go ahead to look for a way to connect it back inside my original princess dart line. So I should have something looking like this at this point. So the next thing I'm going to do guys is to cut out my neckline. Obviously this is like a turtleneck 8 pieces blouse. So for the case of this tutorial, I'm going to be using neck width of 7 and neck depth of 3. I'll just go ahead to connect it like that. So the next I'll do now is transferring my measurements into my pattern. Our bust is 36 divided by 4 gives me 9. I'll be adding 2 inches sewing allowance, and then our waist is 31 divided by 4 gives me 7 and half and quarter. Then I'll be adding the 2 inches allowance that I removed at that point. Then I'll also be adding the sewing allowance of 2 inches, and then I'll just connect that together. Now I want to go ahead to like cut out the yoke. At the center I'm using 8, and then towards the armhole side I'm using 5. Then I'll go ahead to connect my points together and then go ahead to cut it out. It's that simple, guys. So after cutting it out, I'll just keep the yoke aside because I'll be using it to cut on the lace. So I'll just keep it aside and continue cutting the main body. So after cutting, I'll have something looking just like this. Guys, if you've been with me from the beginning of this video till this point, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please support me by subscribing to my channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and then don't forget to give my video a thumbs up. So I just went ahead to label it center front, side front. Then I went ahead to like split the center front because there's going to be like flay at the center front also. So moving to the back panel, this is the quantity of pattern paper I'm using. This is the hip divided by 4 plus 3.5 inch. Then I marked out the zip allowance of 1.5 inch. I marked out my chest line, I marked out my waistline, and here I am just labeling my points. The next thing I'll be doing is I want to mark out my darts. To mark out my darts, I'll mark a nipple to nipple, which is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5 plus ½ inch allowance. That makes it 4. Then I'll just connect that into a straight line. I'm marking an armhole now, just like I did for the front panel. I'll do the same thing to the back panel. Then I'm marking out a neckline, neck width of 7, but in this case I'll be using neck depth of 1 because this is the back. Then I'll go ahead to like mark it out. The next I'll do is from the chest point I'll come down with 1 inch, and from the full length I'll come up with 2 inches, and then on the waistline I'll go forward with 1 inch, backward with 1 inch, and then connect all my points together. So basically that is it for the back. That's nothing too serious, guys. It is that simple. So the next I want to do now is transferring my measurements. A bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches sewing allowance, a waist divided by 4 plus 2 inches sewing allowance, then the 1 inch allowance that I removed from the darts, I'm going to put it on the waistline. Then I'll just go ahead to connect the points together, and then I'll cut it out. Please guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So after then, the next thing I'll do is on the armhole line, I'll come down with 4 inches. You can use 4.5, you can use 4. Then I'll go ahead to connect it to the dart line like so. So basically this is just me cutting out the princess darts for the back panel. After then, the next I'll do is to cut it out. Just cut it out the way I'm doing. It's that simple. Then I'll go ahead to label it. This is the side back, and that's it basically. So transferring all my patterns to my main fabric now, I'll be starting with cutting the center front, and then I folded my fabric already on fold of 2 because the center front is like 2 pieces. So then I'll be adding 3 inches to the front, and then 3 inches to, sorry, not front, I'll be adding 3 inches to the left, 3 inches to the right. I don't know if I'm making sense, guys. You can use 5 inches, you can use 4, you can use 2. It depends on how full you want the flay part of the pieces to be, or probably how, like, if you're cutting for somebody that has a bigger tummy, you should use more than 3. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'll be using 3, and then from the waistline is where I'm going to be starting my flay from the waistline. So I'll just go ahead to connect it like so, and then I'll be adding 1 inch to the upper parts of the pattern. That is the allowance that I'm going to use to join it to the yoke that is coming. Then after then, I'll be adding ½ inch to the 2 sides, the allowance that I'll be using to join all the pieces together to the left and to the right. I hope I'm making sense, guys. After which I'll go ahead to just cut it out. So by cutting this now, I've succeeded in cutting 2 pieces for the center front, and then I'll just transfer my labeling to the main fabric. Just the way I labeled the pattern, I'll do the same thing to the main fabric. So that is center front and this is side front. Now moving to the side front. Now I've placed it on my main fabric. I added 3 inches to each side, the left and the right. I extended it out from the waistline. I added 1 inch to the upper part, and then I added ½ inch to the 2 sides too. So that's it, nothing serious. Now moving to the back panel, the zip side is not going, like the center back is not going to have the flare that the center front has. So the zip allowance is still going to be straight. I'm still maintaining my 1.5. It's just by the sides that I'm going to add the flare, so I extended that by 3 inches. Then here is the side back, still the same thing. I'm adding 3 inches to the left, 3 inches to the right, 1 inch to the upper part, which I'm going to use to join the yoke to it, and then I'll go ahead to cut it out, then label it, and that's it. So after cutting out, this is the back panel. This is what it's looking like. So like I said, you can use more than 3 inches for your flare allowance. You can use 5, you can use 4, you can as well use 2. It depends on how full you want like it to be, or the tummy of whoever you're cutting for. So this right here is the front panel. Then the next thing is to cut lining for all the pieces, which I did. I made the lining 2 inches shorter than the main fabric itself. It's not something serious. I just placed the fabric on the lining and I cut it out. So now moving over to cutting the sleeve. This is the flare part of the sleeve. The armhole is 17. This is 360-degree flare. Then I'll be cutting for the 2 sleeves at the same time. So I'm going to be using 18 because of allowance for joining. The 18, I divided it by 4. It gives me 4.5, and then I made the length of this flare 18 also. What I actually need is 17, but I made it 18 because of the allowance I'll be using to join it to the shoulder, and the one I'll be using to join it to the pencil part of the sleeve. So I cut the 2 sleeves at once. Now here is the pencil part of the sleeve. The length I need from here is 6 because the full length is 23, but I'm using 7 here because of the allowance I'll be using to join it to the flare parts of the sleeve. And then around sleeve is 7 and 9. I just basically marked that and I added 1.5 inch allowance. The next is the yoke. I transferred my pattern to my main fabric for the front yoke, and I did the same thing for the back yoke. But because I don't want zip to, like, the yoke is not going to have zip, I'm just going to like mark out the zip allowance from the yoke at the lower part of the yoke. It's not going to get to the up where the collar is going to be, where like the turtleneck is going to be. So basically guys, that is it for this tutorial. So if you find this video helpful, please don't forget to share my video amongst your soulmates or your friends. Then if you subscribe, please don't just subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you get notified when next I upload new video on this channel. Thank you so much for watching from the beginning till this point. I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.